Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
Meteorologists say the storm dumped over the 8 mm of rain in just 1 hour, nearly half of rain average monthly rainfall. Experts link the event of growing instability of the Mediterranean climate. Following the water, sea temperatures, ice sheets, storms are becoming more frequent and more destructive, said Dr. Erin Toperi, a climatologist of the University of Bologna. Video shared online showed massive hailstorm pelting the streets while the residents sheltered the cafes and metro station. In the suburbs, strong winds on the roof from buildings and left thousands without electricity. Major Roberto Giuliani was called to the emergency assessment, warning that the Rome outdated drainage system can no longer handle such tropical-style weather patterns. The storm here reignite debates about the Italy preparedness for the climate extremes. As one resident wrote on social media, Rome is drawing not from the history but from the neglect. The temperature dropped by almost 10 degrees in less than an hour, said Dr. Luana Ferri, a climatologist at Siena University in Rome. Social media quickly filmed the dramatic image. River for ice falling down, Villa di Corso lighting illumination, Santa Piera Belsica, and tourists running for cover in a hailstorm the size of a marble ball pelted at the cobblestones. Thunder rumbled between the ancient walls, creating the entire soundtrack of the city landmark. Public transport came to the up with the parts of the metro and tram network suspended due to flooded floods and Flumico, Kandla airports were temporarily delayed to clear ice from the runways. Local authority brought in a clear crews through the night, while working around the clock to restore safety, said Major Roberto Giuliani, urged residents to stay indoors and avoid necessary travel. Although no casualties were reported, at least 6 people suffered minor injury from the fallen debris in hailstorms. Insurance companies estimated that the damage in millions of euros, especially to vehicles and businesses with the open space. Residents come pouring the chaos, and the scene from disaster film the noise was different, said Andrea Messina, a shop owner near Teto Messina. It felt like a sky opened about us, hail, winds, thunder, and once and meteorologists attribute the storm and a cut-off low. A cold air remains trapped in the central Mediterranean that collided with the humid air from the Africa, and the received and explosive weather. The event highlighted the turbulent trend. Italy has forced a 40% increase in the extreme rainfall over the past decade. In aftermath, clean-up crew worked to remove debris and restore essential service while local volunteers distributed food and blankets of those displaced. Schools and public officials reminded closer authority as damaged the city to aging infrastructure. Palermo, Italy. A powerful storm swept through the Sicilian capital overnight, unleashed torrential rain, violent winds, and lifting parts and plunged parts of the city into chaos. The downpour, which began late Sunday, lasted several hours of flooded major roads, homes, and businesses across Palermo and nearly town. According to the Italy Severe Protection Agency, over 19 mm of rain fell in 2 hours, one of the hardest rainfall recorded in recent years. The city and the drainage system was quickly overwhelmed, tuning main arteries, Naples, with the Valley region, Sicilia in the fast-flowing rivers. Cars were seen drifting through the streets and emergency crews raising their rescue standing drivers. It was like a waterflow pouring from the sky, said resident Giovanni Bianchi. Those ground floor apartment was submerged. I lived these 40 years and never seen a rain like this. Authority reported dozens of emergency interests from the clearing fallen trees and rescue elderly residents trapped in flooded buildings. Several neighboring, including Sierra Montsetta and Partinico, suffered blackouts after lightning strikes damaged power lines. A violent storm swept through Rome, Italy, unleashed torrential rain, thunder and gale force winds and left parts of the capital flooded and paralyzed. Within a minute, narrow cobblestone streets turned into raging rivers, cars were submerged and public transport ground to the hail. It was terrifying. The sky turned completely black, said Francesco Bianchi, a resident near the Vatican. The wind howled like a jet engine, and lightning struck so close it shook the windows. The storm struck during the rush hour, catching thousands of communities of guard. Firefighters received over 400 emergency calls for flooded homes. Down at trees and standing motorists. It is a Trastevere and Ostia district. Strong winds tore off roof, titles and trooped scooters, while several metro stations were forced to close due to the rising water levels. Meteorologists described the storm as one of the most intense in recent years. Flooded a sharp crash between the humid African air and the cold Atlantic currents of the central Italy. Yesterday, Rome was hit by unexpected and violent hailstorm that transformed its street square in the incident monument into a surreal winter scene. In a matter of minutes, dark clouds unleashed hailstorm the size of a golf ball, torrential rain, strong winds forced residents to seek shelter. It was like a scene from a movie, but a horrible rare, and said Luca Bianchi, who filmed hailstorm, bridged off cars near Pisanova. People were running for cars and the cars were damaged before anyone could reach. The storm caused widespread flooding with the water pouring down Via del Corso and the side streets near Trastevere. Cars were submerged, basements flooding and several trees were uprooted. Firefighters were reported more than 600 emergency calls, region blocked cars following the bruising power outage. The storm did not spur Rome's historic landmark. The Colosseum and Trevi Fountain were partly covered in hail, and St. Peter's Square a separate manner flooding. Tourists and local such shelter were filmed video in the storm with it quickly went viral. Meteorologists explained the storm as a supercell phenomenon caused by the warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold northern front. Venice, Italy, the famous floating city, was once again have been brought to a knee, a worth of nature. During the night, a powerful storm hit Venice, accompanied by torrential rain, strong winds and severe flooding, which left much of the city underwater. Waves crashed into a lagoon and gusts reached speed of over 100 km/h, raising the sea level on this highest point in this year. Residents are awakened to howling wind and southern on series of cities moist. A flooding protection system was was activated to protect Venice with the rising waters. Despite the borough's severe areas, including St. Mark's Square and the rail tow were flooded. We have seen floods before, but this was terrible. The water rose so quickly, said local shop owner Giulia Ferraro. Those business would make deep in water. Tourists caught in a sudden storm wandered through the flooded alleys in plastic boats, with the rescue service working through the night and the rescue standard residents to their secure boats and a had broken loose at the mooring. Said senior metallurgist Dr. Alexandra Ferri. The impact on agriculture was severe. Vineyards and olive groves and Frascati and surrounding areas were damaged, where preliminary estimated putting crop losers into millions of euros. Local farmer Marco Berlandi said they have failed in a matter of minutes and destroyed weeks to heart. Social media was flooded with the dramatic images, hail bouncing off historic statues, water flooding in the Spanish Steps and the residents helping each other to navigate the street. Many compared the scene of winter storm described the summer temperatures. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying such storms throughout the Mediterranean. Climatologist Dr. Gianni Rosso noted, warmer sea and increasing atmospheric humidity increased likelihood in a sudden severe storm. By nightfall, the streets of Rome were glistered with ice and debris and remind of the powerful of nature. Residents ventured cautionally outside to assess the damage, capturing surreal images and instant landmarks under the glittering blanket of hail. Authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel. This was one of the strongest storms in Rome has experienced in recent years, said Maria Roberta Giglietti, who covered in the emergency task force overnight, where coordinated cleanup operation and assessment structure damage throughout the city. Meteorologists at the Italian Airport's Meteorological Center attributed the storm to a sudden collision of the most Mediterranean air and the cold front from the northern Europe, which formed powerful thundercloud over central Italy. The conditions were ideal for the formation of supercell, explained senior meteorologist Dr. Elisa Monti. Such storm can develop with a few hours and cause heavy rain in a very short period of time. Several days, including Austria and EU, received more than 18 millimeters of rain in an hour, a much worse than a rainfall in the Sydney evening. The deluge caused a temporary power outage in some parts of the city and disrupted train service to the Lazio region. A dramatic video appeared on the social media showing lightning strikes at the Coliseum, water following down the French steps in the residents formation human chain to help each other across the flooding. A meteorological from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Service analyzed this extreme weather as a resulting from the unusual collisions between warm Mediterranean air and the cold front moving south from northern Europe. He noted that climate change is increasingly the frequency of such patterns. Forecaster Luca Ferri stated, intense convective activity is occurring frequently, warning that storm could hit neighboring areas over the next few days. The hailstorm also caused delays at Rome Flamenco Airport, with several incoming flights temporarily diverted. City workers that began clearing clothing drain and removing debris to prevent further flooding. As more rain was forecast overnight, experts noted that this storm severe a stark reminder of Italy's vulnerability to rapidly intensify, while the patterns highlighted the growing impact of climate change to southern Europe.
Assassini! Delinquenti sono! Delinquenti sono! Sono dei delinquenti! A muoversi in questo tempo! Delinquenti!
Severe storms have struck Italy, Emilia-Romagna region, unleashed torrential rain, hail and powerful winds that caused flash flooding, power outage and widespread disruption. The violent weather in the late Monday drenched cities including Bologna, Madeira, Ravenna and Forlì, and leaving several communities underwater within an hour. Residents described scenes of chaos, and the streets turned into rivers and vehicles were swept away. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to measure our car, said Luca Bianchi, a shop owner in central Bologna. It was like a city was drowning. Firefighters carried out more than 800 emergency inverters. Overnight, rescue standard motorists and pumped water from flooded homes. In Ravenna, authorities ordered evacuation after local rivers overflowed. Wide sections of the A14 motorway were temporarily closed due to landslides and debris. Meteorologists say the storm was triggered and the sharp drop in the air pressure as warm, humid air from the Adriatic collided with a cold front descended from the northern Europe, a risk from intense thunderstorm. Italy. This week, violent hailstorms struck parts of the northern and central Italy, unleashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles and agriculture, leaving residents stranded in its sudden fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with the hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rows of ice were crashing down. The hailstorms with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua.
Rome, Italy. A powerful and sudden hailstorm brought the Italian capital to the standstill, transforming the historic streets into frozen torrential and leaving residents in shock. Within minutes, dark clouds gathered over the eternal city, unleashed the violent downpour of ice that covered cars, monuments and pigeons under the thick layer of white. Meteorologists described the event of extreme collective cell, an unusual atmospheric clash between warm Mediterranean humidity and a cold Arctic front. Hailstones, some exceeded 3 centimeters in diameter, pounded rooftops and vehicles. Standing off alarm across the city, wind gusts reached nearly 100 km/h, intensified the destruction, uprooted trees and scattered debris along the Tiber River. Emergency service received over 120 calls. In 2 hours, dozens of vehicles were abandoned the submerged streets and firefighters working tirelessly to free people trapped in the underpass. Several metro lines and bus roads were suspended due to flooding and power outage. It looked like a scene from the disaster movie, said resident Lombardy. In a few minutes, day turned into night, and the streets became a river in the ice. The land were deepened on the Catfield destroyed it. power outage left more than 400,000 homes in the dark. Rail service were suspended and Palermo airport was severely disrupted. Businesses and county millions as losers, with tourism, agriculture and fishing particularly hard hit. City famous citrus groves, olive trees and vineyards were flooded, raising fears to flood and shortage. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared flooding a national emergency, promising immediate funding to military support. "We stand with the city," she said. European Union officials also pledged to assistance with the barriers linking to the disaster and urgent need to action on climate change. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying on severe Mediterranean storms, and warning seas are contributing to more intense rainfall. Dr. Elena Rossi, a climatologist, said. "What we are seeing in Sicily, a venial future is urgent action to take no taking. As the water began to rescind, thousands of people forced to painful task to rebuilding, standing outside her destroyed homes in Palermo." Surveyor Rosa Ferraro said with the tears in her eyes, "The Sicilians are strong, but the storm was broken our heart."
Esta es la estación de la Garena.
Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstones that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather than early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authorities reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Coliseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear broken drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like a sky was falling, and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Marco Rossi. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas, which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome, cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice, caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision to warm Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cuts and businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing the city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities.
Yo creo que nunca he visto una cosa así.
Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. Within minutes, major thoroughfares faces, such as Via del Corso, were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, stones from the sky, said Marco De Santis, who took shelters in the capital where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered the slush and ground staff rushed to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Coliseum and up help alter its antient area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish dams and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippery on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Testorial and Toscana. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched into campaign to collect food, clothing and foods. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warn the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding the police and another storm front cooled in southern Italy by the weekend. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Crucio warning about the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate, ECONI, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and draining flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Legibird and Colson Italy in the speed up infrastructure urged especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Italy begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods right through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural areas alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggle to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas.